How's it going, everybody? It's Pride here and welcome back to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Today I'm making a tip video for Dark Souls 3. A tip video for a dead game. Imagine that. But there's new people finding Dark Souls every day. Specifically Dark Souls 3 being the most recent of the Souls games. People getting into PvP all the time, maybe having trouble with invasions, which is, I would say, probably the best thing about multiplayer in Dark Souls, because it's so unique. You know, I don't really know of any other game at the time of making this video that has invasions like Dark Souls. So I thought I would make a video to maybe help people out and give you guys some essential things that you will need, or will at least help a ton when doing invasions. I wouldn't say I'm the best player, I'm pretty average for the most part, but I have so much experience with the game, you know, probably over 1,000 hours, probably half of that on invasions. So I thought I would put together a little list of some, I guess, essential things that maybe you don't need, but will definitely help out a bunch. A lot of these could pretty much be used on any build. They're pretty simple. So that's kind of what we're going for in this video. Not really giving specific builds. I could definitely see that being another video in this series of tips. So let me know what type of, you know, tutorial-like videos you would like to see for Dead Souls 3. So all these are not really going to be numbered from best to worst. These are just going to be things that are great, because if I did that, the number one would obviously be lag. Tears of Denial is up first, or Love Tap as I like to call it. The amount of times that this thing has saved my life in an invasion where I've ended up like escaping from a situation, or even getting the last little bit of HP from a host or a phantom or something that allows me to survive and come back and win an invasion. I can't even count them. There's probably so many. There's a lot of different ways to use this. You could use this miracle for very specific builds that will help you out a lot. For example, if you're using a build that has and focuses on a lot of hyper armor. For example, a build that I like to use a lot is something like the Drakeblood Greatsword with Lightning Blade. It'll do a ton of damage if you continuously hit a lot of people, has some weird hitbox, and kind of has some insane hyper armor. So when having something like Tears of Denial, it'll allow you to tank that extra hit and possibly end up getting the kill on the host with that little bit of HP. I'd probably say that this one was something I didn't use a ton, and it's more of a, like, the last year type of thing that I've used, but it's pretty much shot up to, like, always must have no matter what. This is a essential must-use thing. Only requires 15 faith and 2 slots in your attunement, so the requirements are not really all that high for something that is going to be very, very beneficial for you. 100% it will save your life many times when you're doing invasions, and you need it in situations where, if you're doing something like meta soul level invasions, you can easily get one shot, even by one guy, if the host, is going to be summoning over-level phantoms, which happens all the damn time. Now, I don't really remember where you get the miracle, but here's a tip. Have Google open on the side. That'll show you exactly where you get all these things. You'll be able to find the info, in-depth videos exactly showing you where to get to an area, where something is, so that'll probably be more helpful than me just saying the area where it's at, especially since I don't remember. And number 2, which is kind of like another, I guess, counter to Tears of Denial, which is something that, by the way, also every single ganker is pretty much always going to have, like, I'd say 75% of the time. That is one piece of Kirk's armor, or the Armor of Thorns. This will, a lot of the times, I'd say 50% of the time, counteract that Tears of Denial, because all you have to do is have one piece of that armor on. Usually, you know, the arms or leggings are your best options, or wherever it fits in your fashion. It's up to you, really. All you gotta do is roll into them after you see that Tears of Denial pop, and if they don't have any type of regenerative stuff like a Blessed Shield or the Sun Princess ring, you'll immediately take that 1 HP away that they get for the Tears of Denial, and you'll kill them instantly. This is also something that has helped me out a ton in invasions. It's super useful, easily a must-have if you have it. You know, there are some characters where you might miss it. You have to do something very specific throughout your first playthrough or a playthrough to get the armor. But to be honest, at this point, you could probably go somewhere on Reddit and have somebody drop it for you. Both of those things are pretty good counters to each other. And now another counter for that Kirk armor. I would say this one is not as necessary, but also is, you know, helpful. Is something that I always have if I have a shield on my side. and that is a blessed gem imbued into that shield or weapon that you have on your side. What that will do is pretty much if your Tears of Denial pops, you immediately start regaining your HP. One thing that's pretty good is combining Sun Princess Ring with Tears of Denial, because your HP will come back that much faster, so that pretty much by the time they get to you in a situation where they're going to try rolling into you, you're immediately regaining HP to the point where they won't be able to kill you with that one roll that does the 1 damage. If they have the Kirk's armor, of course. I've had a lot of situations where I've had that pop, boom, Tears of Denial. They think they killed me. They start rolling into me with Kirk's armor. Oh, I have this Blessed Shield on my side giving me HP, so I immediately just start spamming that R1 button and end up killing them because they get so greedy trying to get that last little bit of HP. I'd say if you have a shield, it's definitely your best option. You could also have, I don't remember what the other one's called, the one that gives you focus points, but I feel like that one's not as useful as the Blessed Shields. But here's the thing, that's not really going to work all the time. I'd say it's like 50-50. You're either going to have people roll into you, but if they're ganking most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time if they're ganking, they're going to start throwing knives at you. You're going to have 900 knives flying at you, and you're going to have to try to dodge them all, and most of the time they're going to be incredibly laggy, so there's going to be some that you see have no animation, and all of a sudden they're in your face. That's something you just had to get used to with invasions. Again, if I had a list that was based on numbers, lag would be number 1. Don't pay your internet bill is your number 1 thing of how to be good at invasions. But since we're on this topic already, Guardian Shivs is something that is also fantastic for getting rid of that HP. These are pretty much like kind of counters to each other, right? So you have Tears of Denial, then the Kirk's armor counters that. Then you have the Blessed Shield, which counters the Kirk's, and then if they have a Blessed Shield or some type of regenerative item, you have the Guardian Shiv to counter that as well. You could also use regular knives, which are, going to be similar, but they're not as good because the Guardian Shivs actually track onto the enemy and they kind of, for, a certain period of time, they'll follow their movements. Now, the only problem with that is that you do need focus points for the Guardian Shivs to actually work. That is going to be a tough one if you have a situation where you've been using your weapon art or something like that, or you've been using spells, and then it comes to that little last bit of FP, their Tears of Denial procs, and you go to throw Guardian Shivs and you get like 1 out before your focus points runs out. Had that happen to be a bunch, that's why, just have knives as a backup. Either one is going to work well. Guardian Shivs are definitely the best though. I guess you could consider this next one also kind of like in the same realm with that last little bit of HP, and I'd say if you're using a bigger weapon, consider having a smaller weapon on your side. I'd usually say go with a straight sword, something that doesn't really require a lot of stats. It's a little tougher if you're doing something like a mage build. I'd say short sword is pretty good because the stat requirements for that aren't really too high. And it still does pretty good damage, enough that you'll always get that last little bit of HP. And obviously it is a straight sword, making it incredibly fast. Because with this game, man, if you're using a big weapon, it's so easy to dodge every single hit. Like, you'll never hit anybody who's half decent at dodging, and most gankers are, because usually all they do is run away and gank people. So maybe they won't beat you in a 1v1 to take your HP away, but they'll definitely run away from you pretty damn well. They're going to weasel their way into some hole, and you got to hit them with a straight sword or a smaller dagger before they do that. So definitely have a smaller weapon, quicker weapon. Even, a spear will work out pretty well because it has a lot of range. So you always get that little bit of last HP. Obviously, that doesn't really matter if you have already a smaller to medium-sized weapon. This is mainly a suggestion for bigger, ultra great swords and stuff like that. Next up is lag. Hunter's Charms. Hunter's Charms are kind of obvious. They're pretty much made to, hunt invaders. If you hit somebody with a Hunter's Charm, it basically prevents them from using their Estus. Now, they can still use Sieg Brews, which you always frickin' see, man. If somebody's a dedicated, really, really pathetic ganker, they're gonna have Sieg Brews, they're gonna have Divine Potions or Divine Blessings, they're gonna have all of that shit. They're gonna have an overleveled Phantom that's soul level 700, giving them consistent HP by healing them with their miracles that they can have 25 of, because their focus bar is the size of their health bar. And in that case, something like the Hunter's Charms might not work, but for, I'd say, 80% of the people you run into in the invasions, it's going to be incredibly useful. Going to prevent them from healing. The only problem is that if you have invading buddies, if it hits them as well, they're not going to be able to heal. But I'd say you don't worry about that. You just throw that shit, try to make it hit the host. That's the best thing you can do. This is also something that I never really used too much until like a year ago when I started, doing a lot of invasions for Adventures of the Worst Invader. But it's super useful, but even now I always forget, to be honest. But definitely make sure you always have those in your quick equip bar. Quick equip bar. Quick pip. Dark Souls is making me dumb. I should have probably mentioned this one a little earlier, but I guess it kind of ties in with the Blessed Shield or Blessed Weapon part. Basically a parashield, any type of shield, or even a cestus. For parrying, I get that not everyone's very good at it. I'm definitely not good at parrying at all. I freaking always miss these damn parries. But there's some attacks that are so incredibly easy to parry that you'll never miss. Stuff like the weapon art for the Historic Greatsword, basically charged weapon art attacks. They're always going to be the easiest to do. There's so many times where I've run into gankers that are only doing that because they expect nobody to try to parry them because they have, obviously these other couple of guys that are ganking with them. They're like, oh, I'm invincible. Then you go ahead and bust out a nice parry and Hornet Ring them to death. I kind of wanted to add Hornet Ring to the list as well, but I'd say that one's not really not really a must-have type of thing. If you're not really parrying that much, it does come in handy in situations. Again, if you are good at parrying, you must have the Hornet Ring for sure. You probably already have it. Again, these are things for, I'd say, newer people. If you have as much time as I do on this game, all of these you're gonna be like, obviously these are easy. Where are the secrets? This isn't for that. This is for normal people, alright? Goddamn weebs, go watch the last episode of JoJo, but not before you leave a like on this video. But you're always going to want to try to parry those attacks. It's definitely going to stop a lot of phantoms and hosts from wanting to do those type of weapon arts, for like Gundar's halberd. So yeah, keep that parry shield on your side and hopefully it'll scare some of the phantoms or the host from using that weapon art or any of those type of attacks. Next one is the Cat Ring. Now this isn't essential for every area, but if we're talking Meta Soul level, or, the most popular locations, Gank City, Ringed City, the Cat Ring is going to be incredibly helpful for certain situations where you're either going to want to escape, or if you end up getting hit and thrown off a really high area, you're going to survive that fall. And I'm telling you right now, there's nothing like being on top of Gank City, having a couple of dumb gankers, you knock the host off, oh, he doesn't have Cat Ring, so he dies instantly. Or you throw yourself off on purpose because you have the Cat Ring to try to run away and they chase you and they don't have the Cat Ring, so they just splat and die instantly. Oh, that's my favorite. Honestly, I think that's my favorite type of death in invasions. It's always funny. It's never not funny. But again, if you're in an area where you're not very high up a lot of the times, or you don't really need to run away by jumping off a high area, there's not really a need for this. I guess you could put Obscuring Ring in this same category. At this point, when I do invasions, I don't really use the Obscuring Ring anymore because I use Tears of Denial a lot, and if you use Tears of Denial, they won't be able to see you if you're at a certain distance. By the way, let me just explain real quick. Obscuring Ring, if you're far enough away, you're completely invisible to the enemy. They won't be able to see you, but you'll be able to see them and scout around. That's pretty much what you use it for. I like using it for waiting for teammates and stuff like that, but if you use Tears of Denial, you'll be fully invisible, except they'll see the giant floating fireball that's in your chest that you get when you have Tears of Denial. So it's completely useless when you mix those two things together. If you're going to have this, use the Obscuring Ring first, scout out the people, know where they are, try to run away, make sure they don't see you until you get teammates. You get those teammates, boom, pop Tears of Denial, take that ring off, put something more useful on there. That's what I used to like to do a lot, but it's too many steps, so I don't care anymore. But both of those things are kind of, they have their place, and they're not necessarily the most useful things, but they definitely can help you out. The next one is kind of obvious, but have a decent amount of vigor. Have some respect for yourself, man. How dare you go into an invasion with 20 vigor and then get instantly one-shot because you have 900 HP. Whenever you get into an invasion, your health that you have is cut by 30%, by the way. So you might think you have a ton of health in your own world, but when you get into invasion, you're going to have less health, you're going to have less heals. So having the most amount of vigor I'd usually say always try to have at least 35. That's my benchmark for pretty much every single build. I'll never have less than that unless I'm playing on a lower soul level. But I'll always try to get to 40 or 35 because I don't want to get one shot. And at meta soul levels, you know, 120, 130, 140, 150, way higher up than that, your health gets blasted in 0.5 seconds. And it's so easy to happen. It happens every time. You're going to get one shot so many times that honestly, you're going to wish you had more than 40, which you can't really have unless you have 40. Then you have Life Ring, and you have the Ring of Favor, and you have the Prisoner's Chain. But I'd say all those things aren't really necessary. But for sure, try to get to at least 35 on the Vigor, which obviously is your health. And for the final one is patience. Have some patience. I'd say this is something that I struggle with a lot of times, especially now that, you know, we're at a certain point with Dark Souls where even you, if you're a newer player, you see it yourself. The game's kind of dead, man. It's so hard to find teammates. I feel like I have a much easier time than maybe a lot of people because I stream the game. So whenever I stream the game, there'll be, you know, 100 people or so maybe that are going to be hopping back in the game because they either want to get in a match with me, or they want to help me with invasions, or they want to find invasions. They want to try to gank me or something. But the game in general is, you know, pretty lacking on people. One of the things that it's most lacking on, of course, is other invaders to come and help you with ganking situations. The amount of times that I've waited and I'm like, all right, I'm going to have some patience. This is the one where I wait. And then I'm there for 5 minutes and I get no teammates. So I'm just like, ah, screw it. I'm going to run in there against all 3 of them and just die instantly. And then right as I'm starting to die, oh, an invader joined. And then I die. That's happened so many times. It would be hard to have patience, but try to maybe not rush in there by yourself against 3 people. You can if you want to, and you know, if you say screw it like I do a lot of the times, just say, you know, we'll move on to the next invasion if you're lucky enough to get one. But that for sure is something that will help you out a bunch sometimes, because sometimes these damn teammates that you get, these Aldous Faithfuls, are so dumb that you'll wish you rather had a sack of potatoes with a controller in front of it. But a lot of the times it's still at least better than nothing. So that's it. That's all I could really think about over the last like 10 minutes when I started thinking of this list of things that are essential for invasions that will help you out a ton, that you can pretty much use on any build. You don't need to have a specific build for any of these, and that's kind of what I was going for. I think it was like 12 or 13 things or something like that. So I hope these things help you out at some point when it comes to invasions, or help you, you know, manage it a little bit easier. You might have a hard time at the beginning. At this point in the game, everybody you run into, you can assume is probably going to be half decent unless you're going in those early soul levels, which if you're a newer player, I would definitely suggest, because that's where you're going to have the most fun. And then once you start getting a little bit better at the game and you're more used to certain situations and how to handle an invasion with multiple people, you know, because in a controlled environment like soul level 60, you're not going to take as much HP or damage, excuse me, as you do in 140. And then you move up there and you decide you want to quit because you see the type of people that are up at 120 and 140. Either way, I hope you guys did enjoy. I have no idea who is gonna make it this far in the video, but if you did, man, I really appreciate it. I seriously do. And I hope this helps you, and I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe consider dropping a like on the video if you did. Thank you very much if you do so. I will be doing more of these in the future. Let me know what other type of, you know, I guess tips, lists, or tricks, tips and tricks on a dead game. Let me know what you want to see next. All right, have a good one, everybody. Peace.